So I brought to life the Sumerian civilization, which was really a most amazing civilization. It blossomed out in what is now southern Iraq, in that part of the world. This is the ancient Near East. This is the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, Egypt, Assyria, Turkey, which was the Hittites then, etc. So about 6,000 years ago, an incredible civilization appeared there, and all those that deal with it use such words as suddenly, unexpectedly, out of nowhere, because there was no gradual or any kind of precedential civilization that you had this and this and this, and this was a higher level, a higher stage. Suddenly, from what we may call primitive, though they were not primitive people, but they were farmers, hunters, etc. But suddenly there appeared cities, high-rise buildings, societal organization, kings, priests, codes of law, literature, art, music, musical instruments, all of that within a very short period, appeared about 6,000 years ago. And I sometimes find it necessary to ask people to stop for a minute and think, what is 6,000 years? So we are about 2,000 years removed from the time of Jesus. Now, that time was about 2,000 years removed from the time of Abraham. And then add to that another 2,000 years, and that's where we are talking about And there's no doubt, though, the beginning of the zodiac is attributed to the Greeks, that the Sumerians knew it. They named all the 12 zodiacal constellations in the correct order. This is all Sumerian names. They depicted them the way we still use to this day. So there's no doubt that they knew the zodiacal times. But again, as with other things, how could they? How could any mortal Sumerian not only measure the delay of 1 degree in 72 years, but of 30 degrees of the shift from one zodiacal house to another in 2,160 years? And the answer is that, again, this was a Anunnaki device and not a Sumerian device. And what is important to keep in mind is that the time scale, so that's perhaps when the ancients told Daniel time, half time, 2 times, that they were talking about divine time, the Anunnaki time, is because I ask myself, and I give that answer also in the book, The End of Days, is what prompted, what caused the Anunnaki in 2024 BC to resort to the use of nuclear weapons? What was the problem? And the problem was that Marduk said that the age of the bull, the age of Taurus, which was the age of Enlil, is ending, he said, and my age, the age of the ram, the age of Aries, is beginning. He claimed that this is the correct zodiacal scale. So he said around 2200 BC, the age of Enlil, the age of Taurus, has ended, and my age, the age of Aries, has begun. The others, and this is all in those texts, by the way, the others said to him, no, you are wrong, because don't go by some chart. Look at the heavens. In the heavens, on the first day of spring, we are still in the age of the bull. We are still in the age of Taurus. Why? Because the three zodiacal constellations of the bull, of the ram, and of Pisces are not the same size. So, though Marduk claimed that his age has already begun, it was still observationally, really in the heavens, the age of Enlil, of his rivals, Ninurta, and so on. So this was such a bitter fight that they resorted to nuclear weapons to deprive each other of the spaceport.
Full of stars. Nothing out there looks the same. The same. The one that I've been waiting for. I don't even know your name. Nobody's look like one. All of making ends and politician across the sky. Can't explain the reasons why it's not completely close.
Is called Baalbek, and there is there a vast stone platform of about 500,000 square feet. And here at this northwestern corner, there are ruins of temples built over temples over temples. The latest one are Muslim and Byzantine and Roman, but they are built on or over a platform that pre-existed. And these are some of the most ancient ruins that you see there, of levels that keep rising from down there, rising and rising and rising and rising and rising. And these stone blocks weigh between 600 to 900 tons each. And the immensity of the place is mind-boggling. Even more mind-boggling is one of the courses in the western wall of that enclave, on the western wall, on top of these huge boulders. And the three of them, 1, 2, and the third one, known as the Trilithon. This is the drawing, the image. This is a line drawing of a person, so you can see the scale. So there are three of these huge stone blocks lying in one of the courses, one of the levels, next to each other. And they weigh 1,100 tons each. Now, there is no piece of equipment, even today, that can lift 1,100 tons, or even 1,000 tons, or even 600 tons. There's no such piece of equipment. Yet, and this is his photograph, by the way. I think. Can you see that little ant there? That's me. I'm standing there. And this is the first trilithon, and then there are two more. Now we know where they came from, because about 1.5 miles away, there is the quarry from which those stone blocks were cut and lifted and brought, and one of them is unfinished. So right here it's still part of the native rock, and this part has been already cut, and again this is me there, so you can see the size. So somebody in antiquity, and according to all the evidence before the flood, cut those stones and lifted them over 1.5 miles and put them there, not drop them on the ground, but put them exactly where they should be, where they belong.
never shut it off for 5 minutes.
Baalbek still exists in ruins, but the spaceport in the Sinai does not exist because in one of the next wars between the various clans of the Anunnaki, the Enlilites, the Enkiites, Ninurta, Marduk, etc., they resorted to the use of nuclear weapons. And the spaceport in the Sinai was a target. And you can see to this day two things. One is you can see the immense cavity to this day from space. This is a NASA photograph. And the crack in the peninsula is the result. And if you go there, which I did by myself and with a group, if you go there, you find in that particular spot, you find in the middle of pure white limestone mountains. Everything is pure white. You see a huge field with broken, burnt, and totally blackened rocks. now we are starting to leave ancient history, and we are starting, or I'm starting, to take you by the hand and lead you not only to the present but also to the future. And to understand where history is taking us, this map is the key to it, and please try to remember it. If you recall the layout of the landing corridor from Mount Ararat this way, and Jerusalem as Mission Control Center, and the spaceport, the Giza Pyramids, and the place in Lebanon called Baalbek today. These are the 4 space-related sites that if you keep them in mind, you understand what happened afterwards, what happened in recent times, and what the present conflict is all about. When the dust, let's use that expression, the dust of the nuclear explosion and the demise of Sumer settled, several hundred years later, when perhaps passage was possible again after the use of nuclear weapons here, a major event took place. It is called the Exodus of the Israelites from Egypt. And the Bible says that after about 400 years, God remembered. He said, oh, by the way, I forgot all about those people. There was this guy, Abraham, and I promised him a certain land, the promised land. I made a covenant with him. And then I forgot all about it. But now it's time to fulfill my promises. And the Israelites left Egypt, and I didn't write it yet in any of my books, but I can tell you now that if I ever do, I will tell you that the starting point of the Exodus was the Sphinx, because the Sphinx gazes precisely along the 30th parallel towards the spaceport. There was, of course, no more spaceport there, but the mountains remained, and the mountain which held the various facilities was there, and the Bible calls it Mount Sinai, the mount in the Sinai Peninsula, Har Elohim, the mountain of the gods, of the Anunnaki. So they were sent here on this Exodus to resume the relationship, the commandments, etc., which required for them to proceed to accept all the moral teachings of the Sumerians. I think in my very first book, The 12th Planet, and when I talk about the Sumerian law codes, I say everybody, most people know about all the ancient law codes. Hammurabi, the Babylonian king, his law code, which is on a stone block in the Louvre in Paris, is a code of crime and punishment. It says, if you did this, that's your punishment. The Sumerian law codes, and there's one, for example, by a king 1,000 years before Hammurabi, 1,400 years before Hammurabi, that was a law code of justice that said you shall not take away the donkey of a widow. You shall not delay the wages of a day laborer. Those were the Sumerian law codes. So these were the Sumerian commandments, the Sumerian moral laws that had to be reaccepted, renegotiated at Mount Sinai. And once they were, they had to continue. There was difficulty in going straight. They went around, but anyway, finally they got to Jerusalem. And what did they do once they got to Jerusalem? They built the temple to Yahweh on a platform that existed there. And if you have not done it yet, I urge you to go to Jerusalem, because along the Western Wall, this of course doesn't exist anymore. This is now replaced by a Muslim structure. Along this Western Wall, just as along the Western Wall in Baalbek, in the landing place of Gilgamesh. And this is an aerial photograph. This is the area that's called the Temple Mountain. And this is where the temple stood, and the Holy of Holies, and the Ark of the Covenant. Interestingly enough, that I noticed when I was there and when looking at the area, there are trees everywhere, but not here. Nothing grows here. So this is the Western Wall, and an opening was made along the Western Wall after being blocked for thousands of years. And what was discovered there is mind-boggling, because in the same place, the Western Wall, as in the landing place where Gilgamesh went, there is a trilithon, not of 1,100,000 tons, but only 600 or 700 tons, 3 immense stone blocks lying one next to the other, just as there. And somewhere there, there is a sign that says that this is exactly where a tunnel leads to the Holy of Holies above the platform. And this is another shot of the trilithon in Jerusalem.
So yeah, it's not even about making the book at that point in time. Like, I know that they've seen it. I know that. So it wasn't even about like friggin'. So at that point in time, he knows he's not going to get hired. He could just tell someone to go fuck themselves on the first page of the fucking submission that he puts on there, because like they're not going to give him the fucking thing. They're not going to give him the light of day. So that's what he does, you know. Like how? Well, at first I said he's in the office and just. We're not going to accept this as a project that we would want to get involved with in our publishing company. Oh, really? Oh, wow. Well, how about, oh, jeez. I'm not sure how to fucking take that, because, I was thinking, how about, oh, God, how about I get all, how many times do I get, fucking, I mean, it's a good line, right? It's poetic, whatever. How about I get all the motherfucking money, and everybody else who claims to do paranormal fucking anything can go the fuck home? How about that shit, huh? Publishing all this bullshit about all this other garbage and just detonated fucking reality.